Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast. Jerred Moon here, and I have a very interesting study to go over today. This one was done in 2025, and the name of the study is Does Creatine Cause Hair Loss? A 12-week randomized controlled trial. So if you are unfamiliar with creatine, you must have been living under a rock. So what's very interesting is, creatine back in the day, people were a little bit scared of it. Some people thought it was like this massive performance enhancer, all these kind of things. And then it has become one of the most well-researched and safest supplements out there. And I cycle on and off of creatine. I see a lot of great results when I'm taking creatine, but now there are so many other things coming online from a research perspective of the benefits of creatine. This is not only coming with increased increased performance, muscle gain, all these kind of things. There are a lot of cognitive benefits, especially when you are under stress or really just on a daily mental cognition, mental performance, mental RAM type thing. Like creatine is just proving to be incredibly beneficial for everybody, for all humans. And the research just keeps coming and coming and coming. So, from my perspective, from my chair, creatine seems like an awesome supplement that most people should be taking. And I know when I'm taking it, I do perform better. I feel faster. I feel stronger. My muscles feel fuller. Like everything just feels a little bit better when I'm on creatine. And it's a relatively mild supplement, right? I do cycle off of it just as I do with most supplements, just because that's what I want to do, but I honestly don't even know if you need to if you're only taking roughly 5 grams per day. And but here's the deal. Here's been kind of like the why a lot of dudes have been scared of creatine over the years. And there's this hey, you can take it, but it might cause you to lose your hair, or it might increase the speed in which you lose your hair. And a lot of people are scared of that, obviously, right? Like, who cares about the benefits if you're going to be bald from taking this one supplement? I think most dudes can agree with that. So what's really interesting is we covered the study years ago, like where that kind of came from. And there was this study done where guys were doing an extreme loading phase. They were taking, I think it was 15 to 20 grams of creatine per day. And then they measured one of the prime hormones that is associated with hair loss, which is DHT, and they found these really increased levels of DHT. And so, and it's only just this one study, and the study wasn't very big. It was like a handful of people, maybe a dozen or something like that. And so the big key takeaway there was whoa, massive increase in DHT. And so, creatine probably causes hair loss. And that's really where most of this has been founded, right? Like that's where a lot of the scare has come from. But now we have this very specific study, and it's a 12-week randomized controlled trial. And they're answering the question, does creatine cause hair loss? And ultimately I think you need multiple studies to kind of put something to bed or have a full takeaway. But the primary purpose of this study was to determine whether 12 weeks of creatine supplementation affects testosterone and DHT concentration and hair loss in resistance-trained men. So the study included 38 men between 18 and 40 years old who lifted weights for at least, if not more than 1 year before the study. And subjects were excluded if they had previously had a hair transplant, had taken medication aimed at hair growth, or had a disorder affecting hair loss, or if they had taken anabolic steroids within 6 months of the study, or had taken creatine or hair growth supplements within 3 months of the study. And the study overview, it's a double-blind parallel group study with pre- and post-testing lasted 12 weeks. The subjects were randomized into creatine and placebo. So the placebo is basically like a white powder that looked like creatine, but it wasn't creatine. And all subjects provided their respective powders, creatine or the taste matched placebo. They take home and ingest on their own. The subjects consumed 5 grams of creatine monohydrate daily or 5 grams of maltodextrin daily, and subjects were asked to maintain their normal diet during the study and lift weights at least 3 times per week. So here's the really interesting thing. they measured everything. I mean, they total testosterone, free testosterone, DHT, like a lot of different blood biomarkers. But then they also looked at hair and scalp outcome measures, which I think is crazy. They looked at hair count, hair density, anagen and telogen hair rate, percentage of hair rate terminal, percentage hair rate vellus, like cumulative thickness. So they were really like looking at the hair and scalp, which I thought was really interesting. And ultimately, the findings said that total testosterone significantly increased and free testosterone decreased from pre and post study in the entire cohort. These changes led to a significant main time effect in the ratio of DHT to total and free testosterone. Concentrations of DHT and creatine did not significantly change pre and post study. Most importantly, there was no significant changes from pre to post study for any measure of hair or scalp health. So that is the main takeaway I think that most people should be looking at here. So this is one of the most controlled studies I've seen, specifically looking at hair loss for creatine. And they're saying, hey, creatine, it's one of the most effective and well-researched supplements for strength and power, and it does not seem to cause hair loss from everything that they looked at, from every measure they looked at, not just like, hey, what were the DHT concentrations? What were the testosterone concentrations? They looked at all of the different hormone profiles, and then they were actually looking at people's head and scalp, and this is over a 12-week time period, and they're saying, hey, we didn't see anything that was significant that would say you are going to be losing your hair if you're on creatine, which I think is awesome. This is an awesome study for people because this is really the only concern I've ever seen with creatine. There, for some dudes, it's like, oh yeah, well it's gonna cause hair loss. And when I originally saw that one study with the significant increase in DHT, I was like, well maybe it is, and maybe that's why I should cycle on and cycle off because I don't want to accelerate hair loss, right? As a dude in my late 30s, like I don't want to speed anything up, right? And so if you're feeling the same way, you can now take creatine and know that it's not going to affect your hair loss, most likely, right? Like I don't ever fully believe just one study. I like for multiple things to come out, but this one is pretty well done. And I think that that's something that you should take into account. Now, just a quick note on creatine, a few recommendations. I always get into recommendations with creatine. There are a lot of different companies putting out creatine these days. The one that I always recommend is it's not specifically a company, like go this brand or that brand, but Creapure is the main creatine source I recommend. And to my knowledge, the last research of it, Creapure comes from a company in Germany, and a lot of companies are using this creatine specifically. So, and they all get it the same place. So you choose your favorite brand, whatever influencer is pushing creatine and saying that you should take their creatine or whatever. Just look at the source because they have to put the Creapure logo on the bottle somewhere on their canister. And so if it says Creapure, they're getting it from that same location, which I think is funny. That it's just all the companies are getting it from the same place, but then they have a different logo or different label on it that makes people feel more comfortable. So anyway, make sure it's Creapure is the first checkbox that you want to have, as opposed to some super cheap creatine from China or whatever is not what I'd want to be consuming personally, but hey, you do you. So Creapure, it might be a little bit more expensive, but definitely worth it from a health perspective. And then taking it, we've gone over this quite a bit, but you don't really need to load creatine, which is what some brands will suggest. They'll be like, hey, take 20 grams the first 5 days and then back down. All that's really doing is forcing you to buy more creatine because you're ingesting so much more. And then, so if you're like, well, how much do I need to take? 5 grams a day, really. And it's going to take several weeks for you to truly notice the difference. But you'll notice, I notice when I'm off, and I notice when my cells in my muscles are like fully saturated with creatine. I'd honestly think it takes about 3 to 4 weeks of taking 5 grams each and every single day to truly notice the difference. And so that's just something to keep in mind if you're going to be taking creatine. All right, that's it for this one. Creatine, incredibly beneficial. Do your research and you will see everywhere plastered on the internet right now, especially more recently, there seem to be a ton of benefits for creatine, not just in the sports performance world, but in cognitive, mental health benefits and everything in between. Phenomenal supplement. So definitely something that you want to look into. And if you want to take it, make sure you're taking the right brand and the right amounts. And that is it. If you want to become a part of our training, go to garagegymathlete.com, sign up for a free trial. We would love to have you. And for all of our athletes out there putting in the work, really appreciate each and every single one of you. That's it for this one. Remember, if you don't kill comfort, comfort will kill you.